the mastermind awakening inner acuity and power. In the depths of ancient Shaolin wisdom, an aphorism resonates with timeless truth and immense power. He who conquers himself is infinitely more powerful than he who conquers 1,000 in combat. This seemingly simple statement did not refer to physical prowess on the battlefield, the ability to subdue tangible adversaries, or the capacity to dominate vast external territories. It pointed instead to a victory of unfathomable magnitude and far deeper relevance, mastery over one's own inner world. This profound conquest is the ultimate frontier for any individual seeking true power and lasting peace. If your most fervent aspiration is to sharpen your intellect to its keenest insight, clarify your thoughts to crystalline precision, and manifest an unwavering presence that radiates authority, not the violence of the dominator or the aggression of conflict, but the silent potency, absolute discernment, and invulnerability of a true master of self, then the first unavoidable step is to redirect your search. You must cease the incessant external exploration, that endless race to accumulate more information, more material possessions, more titles, more external validation, or more superficial relationships. This outward pursuit, while seemingly productive, often leads to a deeper sense of fragmentation and unfulfillment. The true path, the way to awaken your potential, begins by observing, with meticulous attention, radical honesty, and limitless curiosity, your own consciousness. It is in this vast and often unexplored internal universe that authentic transformation and true power reside. The genuine mental hack, the master key that unveils the latent capacity already dwelling, immaculate in the depths of your being, is not a superficial trick or a short-lived tactic learned and forgotten as soon as the novelty wears off. It is not a magic solution that can be acquired in a weekend seminar or by reading a single volume. This kind of surface-level approach often provides temporary relief but fails to address the root causes of mental dispersion and internal weakness. It is, in its purest and most transformative essence, a profound metamorphosis of being. This metamorphosis is not an external change, but a fundamental rewiring of your internal operating system. It represents a fundamental shift in how you relate to your own consciousness, to the incessant current of your thoughts, to the vast tide of your emotions, and to the boundless universe that surrounds you. This journey requires courage and unwavering commitment, as it asks you to confront the very patterns that have defined you. This path, unfolding step by step, will lead you to 4 essential realizations, 4 unavoidable steps that, rather than bestowing new and exogenous power, will release the immense force, intrinsic lucidity, and ancestral intelligence that already exist, fully, within you, awaiting to be awakened, carefully cultivated, and put at the service of your highest, most authentic, and most potent expression. Prepare for the journey back to your own center, the unshakable epicenter of your power. The modern cacophony, the silent assault on the mind. The contemporary world, in its dizzying speed and insatiable voracity to capture and fragment our attention, has transmuted into a deafening symphony of noise. This omnipresent cacophony is far more than just audible sounds. It is a pervasive assault on our mental and energetic landscapes. And this noise, far from being limited to mere audible vibrations that assault our ears, the incessant roar of urban traffic that rarely ceases, the discordant jingle of digital notifications demanding our immediate attention, the uninterrupted murmur of extraneous conversations in crowded spaces, or background music that we no longer consciously process, but that dissolves into the periphery of our perception, contributing to sensory overload, expands into a much more insidious and pervasive dimension. It is a constant bombardment of mental noise. This subtle assault manifests as an overwhelming avalanche of digital information reaching us every second from multiple sources: news feeds, social media, endless scrolls, constant emails, streaming content, endless distractions voraciously vying to capture and fragment our most precious attention. A relentless stream of random thoughts, often repetitive, self-critical, and purposeless, and constant external stimulation that, in its massive and unfiltered accumulation, prevents the human mind from finding the essential rest to adequately process, deeply integrate experiences and wisdom, and crucially, to create with true clarity and purpose. This mental cacophony is the exact equivalent of trying to operate a computer with thousands of windows open simultaneously, each running a different application and emitting disparate sounds, paralyzing the ability to perform any task efficiently, and plunging us into a state of perpetual dispersion and superficiality. This continuous mental agitation is the opposite of true wisdom and clarity. Immersed in this environment of sensory, informational, and mental saturation, we have fallen, almost imperceptibly but with devastating consequences, into a dangerous trap deeply rooted in our collective psyche. We confuse constant activity, incessant busyness, and always doing something with true intelligence and perpetual motion with genuine progress. We operate under the illusion that a full schedule and a mind constantly racing are signs of success and productivity. We feel constrained by an invisible pressure to always be digitally connected, informed to the point of saturation, tirelessly productive, or continuously in action, erroneously believing that a constantly busy mind is synonymous with a brilliant, efficient, and therefore valuable mind. This fallacious belief inexorably drags us into a downward spiral of chronic exhaustion, dispersion of mental energy, and a deep sense of emptiness, despite the apparent fullness of activities and commitments. The subtle cost of this hyperactivity is a pervasive sense of overwhelm and a diminished capacity for deep thought. But the truth, an immutable truth that ancient wisdom traditions have known, practiced and transmitted for eons, is that real growth, the true expansion of human potential and authentic inner strength do not spring from chaos, perpetual agitation, or stimulus overload. On the contrary, they emerge like a crystalline spring from the inscrutable depths of the earth, from deep stillness, from a state of unwavering calm that resides in the serene eye of the storm. It is in this apparent inactivity, in this conscious rest, that true power and lucidity are forged. This stillness is not a void, but a fertile ground for genuine insight and strength. There is a fundamental and profoundly logical reason why Shaolin monks, universally recognized not only for their incredible physical discipline and martial feats, but also for their ironclad emotional control and mental acuity that seems to transcend the human, begin their rigorous and exhaustive training not with flying kicks or devastating blows, nor with spectacular demonstrations of brute force or awe-inspiring acrobatics. Their initial instruction, the unshakable foundation upon which they build all their subsequent mastery, both physical and mental, is the incessant and meticulous practice of silence. This is the bedrock of their immense power. The first and most crucial lesson imparted to them is not how to fight an effective battle against the external world, against a visible opponent, or against a tangible threat. It is instead how to stop the incessant battle, the internal conflict, the self-generated noise resonating within oneself, the struggle against one's own mind. Before any latent potential can blossom into its fullest expression, before your mind can become truly sharp and focused, before your body can become a finely tuned and efficient instrument at the service of your will, your breath must slow down and find a serene and natural rhythm. Your heartbeat must calm down to a constant and tranquil pulsation, and the relentless whirlwind of your thoughts, that maelstrom of ideas and worries, must quiet down, like fine dust gently settling after a gust of wind, revealing the clarity that lay beneath. Without this unshakable foundation of internal calm, any external effort, any attempt at mastery, learning, or manifestation will be like building a majestic house on quicksand, doomed to collapse with the slightest tremor or wind, leaving only ruins and a sense of perpetual instability. In silence, the mind, finally freed from the chains and distractions of constant stimulation and overload, begins to realign with its inherent natural rhythm, a rhythm that is its purest and most effective essence. This rhythm is not frantic or superficial, nor is it the artificially accelerated pace imposed on us by modern society with its constant demand for more and faster. It is a deep, vast, and expansive rhythm with the immensity of time and the resonance of the universe itself. It is like the still water running in the inscrutable depths of a mountain lake on the surface. It may seem motionless or barely visible, calmly reflecting the sky, but in its stillness lies an immense and unwavering silent force, a powerful current capable of moving mountains, eroding stone, and nourishing entire ecosystems with unsuspected vitality. This quiet power is often overlooked in our fast-paced world. The vast majority of people, unconsciously trapped in the paradigm of information overload and forced productivity, feed their minds every second of the day with superfluous digital content, constant environmental noise, fragmented information, and an incessant cascade of irrelevant stimuli that they barely have time to process. They fervently believe that more input automatically means more knowledge, more consciousness, greater intellectual capacity, as if the mind were a mere vessel that becomes more useful, the more it is indiscriminately filled, without filtering or discerning. But this is a dangerous and deeply limiting illusion that impoverishes us instead of enriching us, undermining our true intelligence and vitality by filling it with irrelevant data. A flooded mind, constantly saturated with stimuli, superfluous thoughts, and extraneous worries that do not concern it, is not a sharp or insightful mind. It is a dulled, opaque mind that has lost its edge, its capacity for discernment. It is distracted to the point of analysis paralysis, overloaded by the number of simultaneous tasks, and paradoxically too full to genuinely learn anything new, to deeply integrate what it already knows, or to generate original ideas and creative solutions. It is like a computer hard drive on the verge of collapsing due to excessive information and running programs that consume all its resources, becoming slow, inefficient, prone to constant errors, and poor performance. This state of mental exhaustion prevents true intellectual growth and problem solving. The paradox, the profound truth that squarely challenges our logic conditioned by the modern world and its cult of activity, is this: the less noise you allow into your mental space, the more rigorously you filter what you consume. And this includes not only information but also interactions, emotions, and experiences. The more intelligence, mental acuity, and clarity you will gain. This is due to a fundamental reason of energy economy. Your brain stops wasting an immense amount of precious energy processing unnecessary junk, filtering constant distractions, or chaotically jumping from one thought to another without purpose or direction. Instead, that energy is redirected, condensed, and concentrated, focusing all its power on one thing: deep understanding, pristine clarity, and optimal mental function. It is energy efficiency at its best, minimal waste of resources for maximum impact of lucidity and power. The mind as a lake, the revealing power of silence. To illustrate this concept more vividly and resonantly, imagine your mind not as a hard drive crammed with data, but as a vast and deep lake, a serene body of water reflecting the sky. If the surface of that lake is constantly agitated by the wind, by incessant rain, by passing boats, or by turbulent currents, it will always be rippling, murky, and disturbed. In such a state, no clear reflection will be visible on its surface. You will not be able to see what lies beneath the surface, in the inscrutable depths of your subconscious, nor the surrounding landscape in your perception of the world. You would be blind to your own inner truth and to the truth of your external environment, unable to connect with your deeper self or the world around you. But if the water of that lake completely stills, if it becomes perfectly motionless, pristine, and without the slightest ripple, then it transforms into an impeccable mirror, a reflective surface of astonishing clarity. That mirror not only shows you the external world with unparalleled sharpness, revealing details that previously went unnoticed, it reveals to you with brutal and unavoidable honesty everything about yourself. It shows you your own recurrent thought patterns, those that limit you or those that propel you, your hidden weaknesses that you have been avoiding confronting, your most primal and reactive impulses that control you without your knowing it, and crucially, your unexplored strengths and untapped potential waiting to be discovered and manifested. Silence is therefore the master key to accessing that mirror, to unveiling the truth of your inner world without filters, without distortions, and without self-deception. Without it, without that reflective stillness, you live blindly, reacting automatically and unconsciously to every stimulus, without a true understanding of yourself, without the ability to consciously choose your responses, simply following the dictates of your conditioning and the expectations of the environment, like a programmed automaton. The inherent problem with silence, and the profound reason why so many avoid or viscerally fear it, is that it is not easy to achieve, much less maintain in this world of constant stimulation and demand. In fact, for the vast majority of people, silence is deeply uncomfortable, even terrifying in its implications. It brutally and directly confronts us with the incessant chatter of our own minds, with the repressed anxieties we have been pushing to the back of our consciousness, with the deepest fears we have been avoiding confronting, and with the raw reality of our unconscious and often self-destructive habits. It is in silence that uncomfortable truths often resurface with force, where the subconscious speaks to us unfiltered, demanding attention. This internal confrontation can be unsettling, as it forces us to acknowledge aspects of ourselves we might prefer to ignore. When faced with this existential discomfort and internal confrontation, the automatic and instinctive response of most is to flee, desperately seeking refuge in noise. We compulsively resort to social media for distraction, turn up the music or background television to fill the void, or get lost in aimless scrolling on our phones, anything to avoid confronting internal silence and what that silence might reveal about ourselves. We prefer constant distraction, the anesthesia of noise, to confronting ourselves and the undeniable truth of our being. This avoidance of self-confrontation keeps us trapped in cycles of unconscious behavior. But the true transformation or mental hack, the turning point on your path to mastery, lies precisely in the opposite: in the ability to remain, in the audacity to sit, to simply breathe, and to dare to do nothing more than observe. If you are able to maintain that stillness, to embrace that initial discomfort, then you will begin to witness something extraordinary and deeply liberating. Those internal voices that criticize or limit you, those intrusive thoughts, and those compulsive impulses that previously dragged you uncontrollably, will gradually begin to lose their power over you. They will come, yes, like clouds in the sky, or like waves in the ocean, but they will also leave, dissipating without clinging, without a trace, like bubbles in the air. And you, the observer, the conscious being, will remain unaltered, firmly anchored in your inner stillness. That is the true liberation from mental tyranny, the proclamation of your sovereignty over your own mind. You begin to become the observer of the mind, not its slave, its servant, or its victim. This shift in perspective is revolutionary. When you stop reacting impulsively to every internal noise, to every fleeting thought that crosses your mind strengthens exponentially, becomes more focused, more resilient to adversity, and yes, more dangerous in the sense that it can no longer be manipulated, dragged, or unbalanced by internal or external chaos. You have finally reclaimed the helm of your own ship, control over your own internal destiny, and the ability to direct your attention with intention. Think of it this way: in the heat of battle, or in the subtle art of strategy and negotiation, the most dangerous and effective fighter is not the one who moves first impulsively, blinded by emotion, or the one who makes the most noise to intimidate their opponent. It is the one who waits, who observes every movement of the opponent with glacial calm and impeccable attention, who sees the complete picture with unparalleled clarity, who measures the precise moment with infinite patience and strikes with lethal precision and no apparent effort. This strategic patience is a hallmark of true mastery. The same applies to the mind in daily life. A mind trained in stillness, a silent and serene mind, sees beyond the surface, discerns hidden truths, and achieves more with less effort, less friction, and less waste of vital energy. This is the kind of mind you must build if you aspire to mastery, a sanctuary of unwavering calm amidst the whirlwind of the world, a refuge of pristine lucidity in the darkness of confusion, a point of stillness from which all significant and aligned action emanates. The fruits of silence: clarity, control, and unwavering presence. A mind trained in silence is under no circumstances an empty, inactive, or passive mind. On the contrary, it is a mind charged with unlimited potential, a fully recharged battery, ready and waiting for conscious and aligned action. This deep well of internal power is the true source of high performance. Once you have experienced touching that inner stillness, even for brief and fleeting moments at the beginning of your practice, you will begin to notice something powerfully transformative and undeniable in your daily life, a cascade of benefits that will amaze you. Decisions which previously seemed overwhelming, full of paralyzing doubts, and sources of incessant anxiety, become surprisingly easier and clearer, as if the correct path suddenly illuminated before your eyes, revealing its obviousness. This newfound clarity in decision-making reduces stress and enhances effectiveness. Focus, which previously required Herculean effort on your part, and dissipated with the slightest external distraction, becomes second nature, almost effortless, an intrinsic capacity of your being that allows you to direct your attention like a laser beam, cutting through distractions with precision. Your learning ability accelerates drastically as your mind is open, receptive and clear, not overloaded or saturated by noise. This allows for deeper understanding and retention of new information and your emotions. Those powerful and often unpredictable forces that previously seemed to govern your reactions and mood, leaving a trail of regret or guilt, cease to have absolute control over you. You gain the ability to observe your emotions without being consumed by them. Suddenly you are no longer fighting against life, constantly pushing against the current, exhausted by resistance. Instead, you find yourself flowing with it, navigating its challenges with a grace, ease and synchronicity that were previously unimaginable, like a sailboat moving in perfect harmony with the wind, instead of fighting against it. A sharp mind, in the highest and deepest sense of the term, is not one that knows everything, that has accumulated the most data, or that has the answer to every question. It is one that sees with absolute clarity through illusion, through noise, and through superficial complexities. It is the mind that discerns the essential truth, cutting through the veils of deception, and a silent mind is, by unavoidable definition, a clear mind, a pristine crystal, through which reality is perceived, without filters, without distortions, and without the lenses of prejudice. This is a truth that all great masters throughout history, in various disciplines and cultures, have understood, trained with devotion, and applied with mastery. The warrior who waits for the perfect moment before acting, the monk who finds enlightenment in deep meditation and samadhi, the philosopher who discerns the deepest truths of existence through contemplation and introspection. All of them without exception trained their minds to sit in stillness before undertaking any significant action. This practice of stillness is not a sign of weakness, indecision, or passive inactivity. It is the purest and most potent manifestation of absolute control over oneself, a control that translates into unparalleled efficiency, insight, and effectiveness in any area of life, from personal to professional. When you learn to be alone with yourself in silence, you not only tolerate your own company, but you embrace it with gratitude and value it as a sanctuary. This internal sanctuary becomes a source of profound peace and strength, and in that self-imposed solitude, that inner sanctuary, you unlock layers of perception and wisdom that the noisy, stimulus-saturated and superficial world never offers you. It is as if your inner senses sharpen exponentially, allowing you to perceive nuances, truths and connections that were previously invisible to you, hidden by the veil of noise and distraction. And while others around you are exhausted by mental chaos, aimlessly carried away by the incessant current of distraction, you remain calm, precise in your actions, and fully aware of everything around you, unaffected by external turbulence. Your energy is not dissipated in the whirlwind of meaningless activity. It condenses, accumulates, and amplifies, creating a reserve of power that you can deploy with intention and purpose, like a fully charged battery awaiting its moment. So, if your deepest desire is to become sharper, truly more intelligent and more powerful in your life, you must make a radical change, a 180-degree turn in your approach and priorities. Stop feeding your mind with constant distractions, with the incessant white noise of modernity. Instead, begin to listen to what your mind has to tell you, but without the external noise that drowns it out, and without the internal chatter that distorts it. You will be amazed, literally, at how incredibly intelligent, intuitive, and capable you already are when nothing is pulling your mind in 20 different directions. Your natural intelligence is not lost. You do not lack it at all. It is simply hidden, veiled under dense layers of noise, distraction, and unnecessary thoughts that you have accumulated over time. Silence not only reveals it in its pure essence but allows it to flourish in all its splendor and operate at its maximum capacity, like a diamond unearthed and polished to its full brilliance. This is the first and most fundamental stone on the path, the foundational change that precedes any other significant progress. If you cannot command your mind to be still, to remain silent for just 5 minutes a day, how can you expect it to perform with excellence, under extreme stress, under the relentless pressure of challenges, or in high-stakes situations where every decision counts and has a critical impact? Mental strength, true resilience, is not built in the incessant noise of external activity, in constant multitasking, or in overstimulation. It is forged, tempered, consolidated in the deep and sustained stillness of internal silence, in the calm that precedes significant and deliberate action. Let the world pursue superficial speed, instant gratification, and massive consumption of information without discernment. You, instead, pursue depth, substance, clarity, and wisdom. Let them get lost in the endless scrolling of social media or the maelstrom of sensational news. You sit in your center, in your meditation, in your self-observation. Let them react impulsively to every provocation, to every spark of emotion that arises. You observe calmly, discern with wisdom, and consciously choose your response without being carried away. They will exhaust themselves, burn out, get lost in chaos and dispersion, undermining their own vitality. You will rise with unwavering calm, pristine lucidity, and silent wisdom that will make you invincible against external storms, because your strength lies in your unwavering inner peace and the luminous clarity of your mind. Stay with silence, embrace it, make it your most faithful and constant companion, until silence remains with you, not as an imposition or a forced exercise, but as your natural state of being, your home, your unshakable refuge. Only then, and only from that place of inner mastery, walk into the world, not as one who endlessly strives and struggles, but as someone new, someone unshakably focused on their purpose, someone who cannot be distracted by external noise or social pressures, someone who cannot be deceived by superficial illusions or lies, someone who, in their purest and most authentic essence, cannot be defeated by external chaos, because their true strength lies in their unwavering inner peace and the luminous clarity of their mind. Observation, the mirror of reality. When we speak of observation in the context of Shaolin mastery and true mental acuity, we are not simply referring to looking at what is in front of our eyes or superficially seeing the surface of things. The vast majority of people look but do not see the essence. They hear sounds and words but do not listen to the underlying message or intention, and they move through life without perceiving the intricate and repetitive patterns that govern it, both individually and collectively. True observation is a state of expanded consciousness, an immersion so deep and complete in the present moment that everything around you reveals its purest essence and inherent truth, without the need to force understanding or exhausting intellectual analysis. It is to become so internally still, so devoid of mental noise and prejudice, that the external world in its entirety unfolds before you like an open scroll, without filters, without distortions, and with astonishing clarity. Imagine the dramatic difference between ordinary perception and cultivated observation. Most people walk through life half asleep, their minds constantly wandering in past worries, future fantasies, or ruminating, self-critical internal dialogues. They sincerely believe they see what is happening, but they are blind to the hidden patterns, to the invisible dynamics that dictate events and interactions. They hear sounds and noises but miss the underlying message, the unspoken truth, hidden in silence or in tone of voice. They look at faces but do not see the real person residing behind the eyes, social masks, or forced expressions. They miss crucial details, those that truly matter and are often the most revealing, because their minds are too busy judging, labeling, assuming, filling in information gaps with their own projections without taking the time to verify what is truly true. This, far from being intelligence, is automatic behavior, unconscious programming that keeps you limited, predictable, and ultimately vulnerable to manipulation and your own illusions. A brain that is constantly in judgment, categorization, and reaction mode cannot be a brain that observes with purity and discernment. Observation, in its purest and most effective form, begins with a deliberate and conscious deceleration of your immediate response. Instead of reacting instantly to every stimulus, be it a spoken word, a gesture, an unexpected situation, or an internal emotion, you pause. You take a breath, a micro moment of stillness that may last barely a heartbeat or a few seconds, but which is infinitely powerful. In that pause, you feel, you perceive, you allow the information to settle in your consciousness without rushing to categorize it or issue a judgment. You wait a little longer than others, immersed in reactivity, would. You do not feel the compulsive need to respond immediately, to fill the silence with words, to move first, or to control the narrative. You allow everything around you to reveal itself, to show its own truth, without pushing it, without trying to control it, without trying to accelerate its unfolding. It is in this active patience, in this stillness of anticipation, that immense mental strength and sharp discernment are built, allowing you to operate with wisdom. Each time you manage to contain your urge to prematurely judge, to impulsively respond, to interrupt, or to try to control a situation before fully understanding it, you are sharpening, like a master swordsman sharpens his blade, your capacity for observation. You are pruning the noise of your own reactivity, creating a space for lucidity. And it is crucial to understand that observation is not passive, despite its inherent stillness. It is an active stillness, a form of attention that is vibrant and alert at every moment. The difference between the two is subtle in concept, but absolutely transformative for life. Passive stillness is a boring wait, doing nothing out of inertia, a dormant or absent mind. Active observation, on the other hand, is alive, vibrant, with all your senses alert. It is attentive with every fiber of your being. It looks not only with physical eyes but with all senses and with the totality of your consciousness. It listens not only to explicit words but to the silences between them, the tone, the cadence, what is not said verbally. It captures details and nuances that others, absorbed in their own internal dialogue or in haste, completely miss. A barely perceptible change in someone's tone of voice, a momentary tension in the jaw or shoulders, a slight hesitation in a key phrase that reveals a doubt or a hidden truth, the way someone crosses their arms, or the pattern of their breathing when they think no one is watching. These are not small or insignificant details. They are signs, revelations, micro-expressions of the underlying truth. They tell you more about the reality of a situation or about the truth of a person than words alone could ever express. They are the language of the subconscious manifesting, and the master reads it fluently. When you train your mind to observe in this deep and conscious way, the world paradoxically seems to slow down, as if time expands to allow you to perceive every detail. You become acutely aware of recurring patterns, not only in others but also in yourself. You begin to understand, for example, how certain people always avoid eye contact just before telling a lie or expressing an uncomfortable truth, how some force a smile to hide a deep insecurity or pain, or how certain recurring situations, though different on the surface, always trigger fear or a specific reaction in you, even when you act with apparent confidence and composure. You begin to see behind the mask, beyond the surface of appearances, directly into the underlying truth, the hidden motives, the unexpressed vulnerabilities. And when you are able to see the mask for what it is, a construct, an illusion, a facade, to discern illusion from self-deception or external manipulation, you cease to be manipulated by it, whether by others or by your own self-illusions and limiting beliefs. The vast majority of people easily get entangled in stories and narratives created by others, or even by their own ego and conditioning. Someone speaks with authority, and they blindly follow. Someone uses their charm, and they trust without reservation, without questioning their intention. Someone shows intense emotion, and they surrender to it, being carried away by the drama. But if you train observation with rigor and patience, you see the true motive behind words and gestures, you understand the intention behind the action, you perceive inconsistencies, you hear what is not said, you feel what is hidden, you perceive the energy of truth that radiates beyond words. That is what makes you truly powerful, in the sense that you are unshakable in your discernment and in your ability not to be affected by what is not authentic. This form of power is not noisy, not aggressive, nor dominant. It is a quiet, silent, sharp power, and yes, dangerous in the highest sense, for those who operate in ignorance, manipulation, or unconsciousness. You feel no imperative need to prove anything to anyone, to argue, to dispute, or to convince. You simply know what is happening, because you are observing, not from the narrow lens of your ego, your prejudices, or your preconceptions, but from the vast expansion and neutrality of your consciousness. There is an abysmal difference, a conceptual chasm, between reacting impulsively to the surface of things and deeply understanding the essence of what is happening. Observation grants you that deep understanding and the perspective that allows you to operate with wisdom and a clear vision of the complete picture. I invite you to a practical and deeply revealing exercise. Try it for a full day, just one day. Consciously choose to say less than usual, and instead to see, observe, perceive much more. Do not only observe people in your interactions, but also your environment with renewed attention, the colors you often overlook, the textures of objects, the shadows dancing with light, the ambient sounds you normally filter as irrelevant noise. Observe how your body feels at different times of the day, without judging the sensations, just recording them with curiosity. Notice how your mood or energy level changes after certain actions, interactions, or consumptions. Pay meticulous attention to what drains your energy and what strengthens you. These are invisible patterns, subtle threads that nevertheless control much of your life until you bring them into the light of your consciousness through observation. The more you observe with this depth, the more invisible threads of cause and effect you begin to unravel, revealing the underlying mechanics of your existence and the interconnectedness of everything. You begin to understand how a careless word, spoken without thought, can drastically alter the course of a relationship, how a deep and conscious breath, taken at the opportune moment, can transform an emotion that was overwhelming you in an instant, how a moment of patience, an act of containing your reactive impulse, can prevent an imminent disaster or an unnecessary and destructive confrontation. You stop living randomly, at the mercy of circumstances and automatic reactions, and begin to live with precision, with conscious intention in each step and each choice. Now, it is fundamental to understand that this precision is not about trying to control every detail of your life with an iron fist or manipulating outcomes. It is about being so present, so conscious, so aligned with reality, that you can make small adjustments, subtle movements, with an immense and multiplying impact. Like the subtle and decisive touch of a chess master who decides the course of the game with a move that few saw coming, but which he clearly foresaw. That is true intelligence in action. That is what makes you more dangerous, because you are no longer a pawn blindly moved by others or by your own unconscious impulses. You are the one who sees the complete board, who understands the hidden dynamics and the possible consequences of each move. You can step aside when necessary, wisely retreat, and advance with boldness and determination when the time is right and the opportunity reveals itself. And when you act, you do so with full consciousness, with clear intention, and with wisdom that transcends blind impulsivity, each action a deliberate act of power. The modern world, with its frantic pace, constant overstimulation, and emphasis on superficiality, trains you to look superficially but not to see deeply, to scroll through endless news but not to study carefully and assimilate, to hear sounds and voices, but not to truly listen to the essential message and underlying emotion. This generalized superficiality weakens the mind, makes it dispersed, fragmented, and keeps you constantly distracted, oblivious to your own power and the intrinsic richness of reality. But your mind is capable of much more, of levels of perception and understanding that you barely glimpse in your current state. You just have to remove what dulls it, what clouds it, and train it with the same dedication with which a blade that has been rusted by disuse and misuse is sharpened, to observe again with purity. In Shaolin training, we are taught to walk through the forest and listen to the wind not just as random noise but as a message. We observe the leaves of trees not just as part of the landscape but as subtle signs of change. We look at the ground not just to walk on it, but to understand what came before us, the traces of life that preceded us, the dynamics of the ecosystem. This is not esoteric mysticism, it is pure mastery, it is the application of sharpened consciousness and mindfulness. Seeing what others ignore, perceiving what others do not perceive, leads to actions that others simply cannot take because they lack the information or insight necessary to act with such a level of precision and effectiveness. Think of the person who notices a change in the energy of a room before anyone speaks, the one who feels the tense or relaxed atmosphere, the one who perceives a change in mood in a conversation before it is verbalized. That person is already adjusting, already calibrating their response before others even realize something has changed. That person does not need to dominate the conversation or impose themselves with noise. They already lead by their consciousness, they win by their presence, by their ability to operate one step ahead of reactivity. And this is what makes you truly intelligent and powerful. Observation is the root of all deep intelligence and all practical wisdom. You cannot understand what you do not first see clearly. You cannot change what you do not first recognize as a pattern or a truth. The more you observe with this depth, the more subtle and crucial data your mind collects, the more intricate patterns it perceives, and the more effective and wise it becomes. This is how genuine learning happens, not just by reading books, not just by listening to lectures, but by observing everything with full attention, without trying to change it, just to understand it in its essence. It is vital to remember that this practice of observation, while it grants you sharp discernment and an advantage, is not about becoming paranoid or suspicious of others, nor about seeking flaws. On the contrary, it is about becoming more alive, more conscious, more awake, fully engaged with your senses and with the intrinsic richness of the present moment. Your perception is your greatest power, and it does not require you to be the loudest or the fastest to react, only the clearest and the most present. To become more intelligent and powerful, you must sharpen your observation, making it second nature, a continuous state of being. And that means training your consciousness to move ahead of your words, ahead of your actions. You live one step ahead, not because you mystically predict the future, but because you see the present with a clarity and depth that escapes most. Practice this until your mere presence, the unwavering quality of your attention, begins to transform the energy around you, because people can feel intuitively when they are truly seen, when they are given non-judgmental attention, pure and present attention. And that kind of vision cannot be faked. It emanates from deep observation, trained over time, practiced in silence and refined by unwavering patience. Allow your consciousness to become your greatest advantage, your attention to become your unwavering strength, and your observation to become the silent weapon that changes everything around you, without the need for force, aggression, or manipulation. The breath, the bridge between body and mind. There is a rhythm that lives unaltered within every human being, a primordial pulse that is older than conscious thought, older than the most primary emotion, older than any personal memory. It is the rhythm of life itself, the uninterrupted melody of your existence. This rhythm begins before you speak your first word, before you take your first step, before you understand any concept in this world. The first thing you did when you were born, when you entered this plane of existence, was to inhale. The last thing you will do when you leave this plane will be to exhale. Between these two moments, between the first inhalation and the last exhalation, your entire life happens. Your breath is not just something your body does automatically to survive, a mere autonomous physiological process. It is in fact the most direct and powerful bridge between your mind and your body, the vital threshold, the sacred connection point between your consciousness, your internal state, and your unlimited potential. Observe this carefully. When your breath is shallow and restricted, constrained by tension, stress, or anxiety, your mind tends to be dispersed, fragmented, and unfocused. When your breath speeds up uncontrollably and superficially, your heart races, your emotions spin out of control, and your ability to focus completely vanishes. But when your breath becomes conscious, when it calms and deepens, when you inhale with full awareness of every particle of air entering and nourishing you, and exhale with a deliberate intention to release and let go of tension, everything within you radically transforms. The mind slows down to a serene and lucid stillness. Turbulent emotions soften, settle, and lose their pulling power. Internal chaos dissipates, and clarity, like the sun breaking through after a dense storm, returns to illuminate your path. That is not abstract philosophy or mysticism, it is pure applied biology, the undeniable and demonstrable interconnection between your autonomic nervous system, your brain, and your breath. And crucially, it is a direct result of conscious and deliberate training. The vast majority of people do not breathe in the sense of a conscious, full, and empowering action. They simply survive, allowing the body to function on autopilot. They allow the body to function automatically, never questioning what vital functions are being controlled by their subconscious and which are being ignored, thus leaving a vast and colossal untapped potential. But on the path to mastery, on the path of the internal warrior and the master of oneself, nothing is automatic. Everything must be intentional. Every act a conscious choice, every breath an opportunity. Breath must be trained, not only to increase oxygen in the blood or to maintain basic vital functions, but to actively mold and shape the state of your brain and nervous system. It is control of control, mastery over the source of your state. In the Shaolin monastic tradition, and in many other Eastern spiritual traditions, breath is much more than air. It is vital energy, it is chi or prana. It is the life force that animates every cell of your being, that moves the miniature universe that is your body. And it is the first step, the fundamental and most accessible tool to gain control over the mind, precisely because it is the only function that directly connects both the voluntary systems, which we can consciously control, and the involuntary systems, which operate without our conscious intervention of the body. You cannot force your heart to slow down with direct thought alone. You cannot stop your digestion with pure willpower, but you can control your breath, and by doing so you can powerfully influence everything else: your heart rate, your emotional state, your mental clarity, and your ability to focus. This is why, when a student first arrives at the temple, they are not asked to meditate for hours in complex postures, nor to perform extraordinary physical feats from day one. They are asked again and again to simply breathe slowly and deeply, to do it again and again and again, because without mastery over breath, there is no mastery over thought. And without mastery over thought, there is no path to real wisdom, only automatic reaction, only chaos, only persistent illusion. A sharp mind, a truly brilliant and effective mind, does not come from thinking more or harder, nor from saturating oneself with information until collapse. It comes from thinking with greater clarity, with a pristine lucidity that cuts through noise and confusion. And clarity is a direct result of stillness, not of mental tension or exhausting effort. Conscious breathing is the supreme catalyst that creates that stillness. You do not desperately chase it as something external, you create the internal conditions, the conducive environment for it to arrive naturally, and for it to flourish within you. Each inhalation should be full, nourishing, but never forced or tense. Each exhalation should be long, complete, enough to empty what you are holding within, both physically and mentally. It is a constant act of letting go, of releasing what no longer serves. Now, think of how many crucial moments in your life were lost. How many opportunities vanished before your eyes. How many erroneous decisions were made. How many words of regret were uttered. All due to untrained breathing, to uncontrolled breath. Anger rose too quickly. Panic overwhelmed you and completely nullified your logic. Fear interrupted your words and prevented you from speaking your truth, expressing your essence. Your breath was uncontrolled, and therefore your actions were automatic, reactive, impulsive, without true discernment. Your breath was shallow, and therefore your thinking was narrow, limited, unable to see the complete picture or find creative solutions. Each time you lose control of your breath, you lose a fragment of your power, of your internal sovereignty. But once you begin to train it consciously and consistently, everything in your life begins to radically transform. Your breath becomes your unshakable anchor amidst the most intense stress, your protective shield in the most heated conflict, your silent weapon in the stillness of meditation and introspection. When others panic, agitate, or disperse, you remain calm, unshakable. When others rush aimlessly, carried away by inertia, you remain centered and rooted in your being. This is not magic. It is the direct and predictable result of conscious breathwork, an ancient science validated by experience. And it must be practiced daily, not only when you are in the midst of a crisis or facing a high-pressure situation, but especially when you are not. Because what you train and strengthen in peace and calm will faithfully serve you under the most intense pressure and in moments of greatest challenge. Imagine the ability to walk into a room full of people, to feel the dense or chaotic energy that prevails, and to be able to slow your breath in an instant. Your heart rate adjusts in seconds. Your posture settles, becomes more rooted, projecting an unshakable calm. Your awareness expands to encompass the entire space, and your presence becomes solid, heavy, not aggressively or imposingly, but deeply rooted and magnetic. You don't need to speak a single word and people feel it. They perceive your presence, your inner calm, your control. This is the undeniable effect of trained breathing, and it is a rare and precious quality in this fast-paced and superficial world, yet immensely powerful beyond any material measure. Breath control does not mean holding it or forcing it unnaturally, which would be counterproductive. It means harmonizing it, finding its natural rhythm, and then cultivating it. It means learning to breathe with your whole body, not just your lungs, and allowing your autonomic nervous system to follow the serene rhythm you yourself establish. Your brain is listening to your breath more attentively and in a deeper way than it listens to your verbal thoughts or your self-affirmations. You may think you are calm and relaxed, but if your breathing is tense, shallow, and agitated, your brain will not believe you. It will send alert signals to the rest of your body, generating anxiety. You may think you are confident, but if your breathing is weak and inconsistent, your energy leaks and your presence weakens. Breath does not lie. It is an honest barometer of your internal state. And so the first thing you should ask yourself when you feel confused, reactive, anxious, or weakened, is not what am I thinking or what is happening to me, but how am I breathing? Fix the breath, make it conscious and deep, and the mind will follow it to stillness. Fix the breath, and turbulent emotions will settle. Fix the breath, and pristine clarity will return to your consciousness. This is not something you do once and forget, nor is it a superficial trick for a tight spot. This is a lifestyle. It is the very foundation of inner power, an unshakable bedrock that sustains you in any circumstance and allows you to operate from your center. It does not require absolute silence, solitude, or a special place to practice. You can train it anywhere in the midst of deafening traffic, in the bustle of a crowd, in the midst of interpersonal conflict. A single conscious breath, taken with full intention, can change everything in an instant. A conscious breath can stop an imminent mistake before it happens, can open a new path where there was none before, can instantly return you to your center, to your true self, in the midst of chaos. If you do this consistently, with discipline and love, your entire identity will profoundly transform. You stop being someone who simply reacts to external and internal stimuli like an automaton. You become someone who consciously chooses their response in every moment. You stop being aimlessly carried away by the tide of your emotions. You begin to ride them, to surf them like an expert on a wave, using their energy to propel you. You stop fearing the unknown, because your breath becomes your constant companion, your inner compass, your unshakable anchor. And with it you can face anything because your breath, your life, your essence is always with you, an inexhaustible source of power and calm. Let go of the erroneous and limiting idea that intelligence is just about accumulating knowledge or being fast at processing information. True intelligence, deep wisdom, lives in the body, in the breath, in the sacred space created between your thoughts. It is the breath that creates that space, that fertile emptiness. Without space, there is no insight, only mental noise. Without conscious breath, there is no power, only pressure and exhaustion. Without awareness of your breath, there is no true awareness of life itself, only a superficial existence. So, if your deepest desire is to become sharper in your mind, more focused on your purposes, more present in every moment, and ultimately more powerful in your being, start with the breath. Don't rush it. Don't fake it. Just return to it again and again with patience and perseverance, until it becomes your default state, your second nature, not only in the silence of meditation, but in every moment of your day, in every action, in every interaction. Train your breath until it becomes your most faithful ally, your wisest guide, your infallible inner compass. And when others are scattered, you will remain firm, unshakable in your center. When others are lost in the whirlwind of their thoughts, you will be anchored in your unshakable presence. And the more you master your breath, the less you will need to prove anything to anyone, the less you will need to justify your existence or your actions, because your mere presence will speak louder, more eloquently, and with more authority than any words you could utter. Breathe with purpose until purpose breathes through you, and then you will become purpose itself. Detachment. The liberation from mental tyranny. There is a fundamental truth that we often ignore. To our own detriment, not every thought that enters your mind is true, and crucially, not every voice or internal dialogue in your head truly belongs to you. Some thoughts are mere echoes of the past, old patterns that repeat senselessly, like a scratched record on a loop. Others are fears you have unconsciously absorbed from others, collective anxieties floating in the atmosphere like a dense fog, or insecurities instilled in you by upbringing or society. Some are simply thought patterns created by constant repetition, mental habits that have become deeply rooted in your subconscious, not by intrinsic truth or innate wisdom. The problem, the root of much of our suffering and limitation, begins precisely when we believe all of them indiscriminately. When we follow every thought as if it were an unshakable command, an absolute mandate, and not a simple suggestion, an option among many presented in the vast landscape of your consciousness. It is thus by identifying our being with every fleeting thought that we surrender our most intrinsic power, that we unknowingly become slaves to our own minds. Weak thoughts, those that limit you, paralyze you, and hold you back from your maximum potential, are surprisingly easy to recognize once you begin to practice detachment and stop blindly identifying with them. They sound like excuses, like elaborate justifications for inaction or mediocrity. They sound like the voice of doubt, procrastination, and endless hesitation. They sound like the internal dialogue that always finds a reason not to do, not to speak, not to try, not to risk, not to grow, not to leave the comfort zone. That voice, that recurring thought pattern, is not your enemy in the sense that it has no conscious malicious intent, but neither is it your wisest guide, nor the purest expression of your true self. It is, in essence, a residue, a remnant of past conditioning, of fears rooted in the subconscious, and of social or family programming, speaking disguised as logic, common sense, prudence, or realism. Detachment does not mean that you stop thinking or that you try to forcibly suppress your thoughts, which is impossible and counterproductive, as what is resisted persists. It means, crucially and profoundly liberating, that you stop becoming what you think. There is a deep and transformative difference between observing a thought that arises in your mind and being consumed by it, dragged by its narrative. You still hear the thoughts, yes, because the mind is a constant idea-generating machine, but you no longer cling to them as if they were an intrinsic and immutable part of your identity. Instead, you observe them with a quiet distance, with a compassionate neutrality, in the same way you would observe clouds moving slowly across the sky. You don't anxiously chase them. You don't try to catch or manipulate them. You don't try to control their shape or direction. You simply notice them, acknowledge their momentary existence, and allow them to pass, without resistance, without attachment, without judgment, allowing them to dissolve. This is where true intelligence begins, true mental freedom, the ability to choose your state. You begin to see not only what you are thinking, the superficial content of ideas, but the quality of thought itself, its vibrational origin, its underlying intention, and its impact on your internal state. You begin to ask yourself with honesty and discernment, Is this thought that just arose truly serving me, or is it holding me back on my path? Is it building me up, expanding my potential and my vision, or is it weakening me, contracting me, and limiting me? Is this thought genuinely mine, an expression of my inner wisdom and my purpose, or is it something I was told thousands of times in my childhood, at school, in society, until I believed it as an absolute and limiting truth? You stop being a passive and obedient follower of every thought that crosses your mind and begin to become a conscious leader of your own consciousness, a discerner of truth, a guardian of your mental space. A weak and limiting thought might say, "I can't do this." But your consciousness from the seat of the detached observer calmly and wisely replies, "Perhaps that's just fear speaking, an old voice, not the truth of my limitless capacity." A weak thought might insidiously whisper, "I'm not ready." And your inner presence, rooted in detachment, responds with quiet certainty, "Perhaps I never will be in the way I imagine, so either way I'll start, and preparation will reveal itself along the way as I act." That is not denial of reality or self-deception. It is an act of detachment from the tyranny of limiting thought and an affirmation of your power of choice, of your ability to create your reality. Detachment grants you the ability to move, to act, to advance in your life without waiting for perfect conditions, perfect feelings, or absolute certainty. It frees you from analysis paralysis and fear-driven inaction. This mental mastery is not achieved in a single day, nor with a single meditation session or an inspiring reading. You train it in the same way you train your body in rigorous physical discipline, or your breath in conscious practice, with constancy, unwavering patience, and loving dedication. You sit in silence, often in the same place where you practice conscious breathing. You observe your mind without judging it, without trying to stop the flow of thoughts, just watching them pass with curiosity. You allow thoughts to arise without grasping them, without getting entangled in their seductive narratives or dramas. You allow discomfort, if it appears to remain, without feeling the imperative need to fix it or flee from it. You let the storm of thoughts pass, to dissipate on its own, without running towards it, without identifying with the eye of the hurricane. The reason this training mental detachment makes you more dangerous and formidable is because the vast majority of people are governed by their thoughts. They are slaves to internal noise and act without questioning the validity or origin of what they think. They blindly believe everything their mind tells them, and that makes them predictable, easy to control, and easy to manipulate or activate with emotions, because their reactions are automatic and based on predetermined programming. But once you stop obeying every impulsive thought, every limiting voice, you become calm, focused, unshakable, and to the external observer inscrutable, because you are no longer reacting to mental or emotional noise. You have regained your sovereignty and your internal autonomy. In the same way that a warrior trains rigorously not to be perturbed by an imminent physical threat, you train your mind not to be perturbed by the threat of a limiting thought or a destabilizing emotion. A strong thought, aligned with your truth and your purpose, arises, and you examine it with discernment, choosing to empower it and follow it. A weak and limiting thought arises, and you simply release it, let it go without clinging to it. There is no internal struggle, no war against yourself, only quiet observation and conscious choice. That is true freedom. The culmination of mental mastery and freedom of mind is the greatest strength you can cultivate, beyond any physical or intellectual strength. Weak thoughts love comfort, thrive on drama, love delay and procrastination. They will always choose the easy way, the path of least resistance, because they are born of fear, and fear does not seek effort. It seeks security, inertia, and familiarity, not growth or expansion. You cannot prevent fear from visiting you in the form of thought, but you can prevent, with detachment, it from becoming your master, the voice that dictates your actions and your destiny. Begin to pay meticulous attention to your internal language, to your constant mental monologue. Observe the phrases that repeat over and over again, especially those that limit you, criticize you, or hold you back from your potential. They are ingrained patterns, not intrinsic truths. They are mental habits, not innate wisdom. When you begin to challenge them, to question their origin and their validity, something profound changes. A space opens, a fertile void, between the thought that arises and your automatic reaction to it. And in that space, however tiny it may seem at first, is where your power, your ability to choose, your autonomy resides. That space is small and fleeting at first, almost imperceptible, but it grows exponentially with your consciousness and with each intentional breath. Each time you choose to wait before impulsively responding to a situation, each time you choose to breathe deeply before blindly believing a limiting thought, you expand that space of freedom. You expand it until you no longer live in impulsive reaction, but in conscious response, not in blind panic, but in grounded presence and calm. Weak thoughts, with their disguise of logic, can often sound convincing but remain false and deceptive, because they often wear the mask of reason to hide the underlying fear and insecurity. You must learn to feel what is behind the thought, its true vibrational root. Does it come from strength, from confidence, from expansion, or does it come from fear, from contraction, from limitation? Is it expanding you or shrinking you? This is how you test thought, without needing to argue with it, just by feeling its truth. Once you begin to do this with consistency, you realize something crucial and liberating. Your mind can be full of thoughts, and yet you can remain in a state of absolute clarity and calm. Your head may be noisy, with an incessant chatter of ideas, and yet your actions can be incredibly precise and sharp, because you are no longer inside the thought, identified with it and carried away by its current. You are observing from outside, from the seat of your consciousness, from inner stillness, and choosing which thought to follow, which idea to empower. That is true intelligence, wisdom in action. That is what separates insignificant noise from practical and profound wisdom. Allow weak thoughts to arise and call to you. Let them scream, complain, try to persuade you, if necessary. But you do not move, you do not act, unless the signal is true, clear, and aligned with your inner wisdom and your highest purpose. That is not stubbornness or resistance, it is mastery. You walk your path, not because your mind tells you to run or act impulsively, but because your consciousness from stillness tells you now is the right time. This is the aligned action. Synchronicity and the intelligence of flow. When the mind deeply quiets, freed from constant internal chatter and incessant dispersion, and observation sharpens to perceive the most subtle nuances and hidden truths of reality, a level of intelligence is activated that transcends linear logic, rational analysis, and mechanical causality. You begin to perceive synchronicity, not as mere random coincidences, products of chance or fortune, but as events that, although seemingly unrelated by a direct and predictable cause-effect, occur with profound meaning and surprising relevance to your path, your evolution, or your highest intentions. Synchronicity is the elegant and silent way in which the universe, in its infinite intelligence and inherent wisdom, responds to your state of internal coherence. It is the melody of the cosmos, aligning perfectly with yours, a silent but eloquent and deeply meaningful conversation woven into the fabric of your life. A noisy and dispersed mind, overloaded with fragmented information and hasty judgments, is incapable of perceiving these delicate signals, interpreting them as mere accidents of chance, thus losing the opportunity for vital guidance and clear direction. But a clear mind, forged in the purifying crucible of silence and sharpened by the unwavering insight of observation, instantly recognizes them as clues, as beacons, as subtle guides that lead you, almost magically, towards your highest purpose and the optimal unfolding of your potential. To illustrate this concept more vividly and comprehensively, imagine your consciousness as a ship sailing on a vast and complex ocean. If your mind is constantly filled with noise, your thoughts are like turbulent and chaotic waves on the surface, and your observation is superficial and fragmented, then your ship is adrift, without a compass, without a rudder, at the mercy of treacherous currents and relentless storms. You are in essence a pawn in the vast sea of life, without control over your direction or your destiny. But when your mind quiets, when the waters of your inner lake become like crystal, and your observation sharpens to see beyond the obvious, it is as if an infallible inner compass activates within you. You begin to see the invisible ocean currents that benefit you, to feel the subtle winds that gently push you in the right direction, to recognize the guiding lighthouses that were previously hidden by the fog of noise. The coincidences that you previously ignored become direct and personalized messages from the universe, invitations to act. The wrong person who unexpectedly appears on your path, or the one who initially irritates you, may reveal themselves as the perfect catalyst for a necessary lesson, a mirror showing you something about yourself, or an opportunity for growth you would not have considered. The unexpected obstacle that previously frustrated you and seemed insurmountable now reveals itself as an opportunity to develop a new skill, an inner quality you did not know you possessed, or a different perspective that opens you to creative solutions. This is the intelligence of flow, the ability to move with the current of life, to ride its waves with grace and skill instead of exhaustingly fighting against them, to dance with the universe in perfect harmony instead of resisting its natural rhythm. The vast majority of people live in a state of constant resistance to what is. They fight against present circumstances, against people, against their own emotions, even against the past they cannot change. This resistance is not only immensely exhausting for the body and mind, but it is deeply counterproductive, as paradoxically it creates more of what they are trying to avoid. The noisy and reactive mind desperately clings to the illusion of control, trying to force results through pure will and Herculean effort, an ineffective and exhausting long-term strategy. But the Shaolin master, the one who has conquered his inner world, knows that true power does not reside in force, in rigidity or in imposition. It resides instead in fluidity and supreme adaptability. Deep stillness allows you to see the current of life as it is, without distortions, without the lenses of your desires or fears. Sharpened observation shows you the precise moment and the most efficient way to move with that current, to surf it. And detachment, that liberation from the need to control the final outcome or to cling to a rigid plan, frees you from anxiety, stress, and frustration, allowing you to fully trust in the inherent intelligence of the universe, an intelligence infinitely wiser, more ingenious, and more compassionate than yours. This does not mean in any way passivity or inaction, nor naive complacency in the face of difficulties. On the contrary, it means inspired action. When your mind is clear, free of noise and illusions, and your observation is sharp and perceptive, you begin to receive internal impulses, clear intuitions to act. A sudden thought to call someone you haven't seen in years who turns out to be the key to an opportunity. A brilliant and spontaneous idea for a project that seems to come out of nowhere, with astonishing clarity. A visceral feeling, a deep knowing that it's time to move in a specific direction, to make an important decision, to initiate a change. These are not blind emotional impulses or automatic reactions to external stimuli. They are clear signals of synchronicity, direct invitations from the universal flow that indicate the path of least resistance and greatest impact. And when you act upon them with confidence and without hesitation, the universe seems to conspire in your favor in amazing and often miraculous ways, opening doors that were previously closed, revealing unexpected resources, and connecting you with the right people at the precise moment. It's as if the universe itself was saying, yes, this is what I was waiting for. This is the energy I can amplify and manifest. It is a dance of co-creation. The mastery of the body, a temple of consciousness and resonance. Mind and body are not separate entities operating independently. They are in fact two sides of the same existential coin, intrinsically interconnected and mutually influencing each other at every moment of life. Shaolin mental mastery, that acuity and clarity we have discussed, has always been reflected and deepened in the conscious mastery and cultivation of the body. A tense, sick, exhausted, neglected or disharmonious body is a deficient receptacle for a sharp and lucid mind, like a race car with a finely tuned engine, but a weak and rusted chassis that prevents its optimal performance. On the contrary, a strong, flexible, vital, energized and consciously inhabited body exponentially amplifies the power, lucidity and resilience of the mind. It is the perfect vessel for an elevated consciousness, the sacred temple where true mastery can take root. Mindfulness of the body, or bodily mindfulness, is an essential and deeply rooted extension of observation. You not only observe the external world and the flow of your thoughts in your mind, but you also direct meticulous, non-judgmental attention to the sensations and messages of your own body. The subtle tension in the shoulders that reveals accumulated stress, the tight knot in the stomach that reveals anxiety, the slight pressure in the chest that indicates unprocessed emotions, the lightness or heaviness in the heart that reflects joy or sadness, the tingling in the extremities, the temperature of your skin that informs you about your internal state. These are not mere isolated or random physical sensations, they are eloquent signals, direct messages from your inherent bodily wisdom, precise indicators of your emotional, mental, and energetic state. A noisy and distracted mind, disconnected from its physical vehicle, ignores these subtle signals, which often leads to the accumulation of chronic stress that manifests physically, to illness or to inexplicable exhaustion. A Shaolin mind, on the other hand, listens carefully to these signals, deciphers them as a sacred language, and acts accordingly, anticipating imbalances before they become serious and consolidated problems. It is a form of preventive medicine and deep self-knowledge. Posture is not just a matter of aesthetics, social appearance, or ergonomics to avoid physical pain. It is a dynamic and constant reflection of your internal state, both emotional and mental. A hunched posture with drooping shoulders and a sunken chest can indicate a tense mind, a depressed spirit, a feeling of emotional burden, or a deep lack of self-confidence. An upright posture with a straight but relaxed spine, shoulders back and chest open, rooted in the earth and connected to the sky, radiates confidence, calmness, openness, and a silent authority that can be felt in any space. By consciously correcting your posture, you not only improve your physical alignment and prevent pain, you also directly influence your mental and emotional state, sending signals of strength, calmness, and empowerment to your brain and your entire nervous system. It is a deep and constant bidirectional feedback. The mind affects the body, and the body in turn powerfully affects the mind. Deep and diaphragmatic breathing, rooted in the abdomen, the lower dantian in Taoism, the body's energetic center of gravity, sustains this posture, anchoring you to the present and to your inexhaustible source of inner power, creating a solid foundation for your presence. Conscious movement, through ancient disciplines such as Qigong, Tai Chi, or certain forms of yoga, is a form of meditation in motion that indissolubly integrates mind, body, and spirit in a harmonious and fluid dance. It is not about physical exercise in the modern sense of burning calories or gaining muscle, but about cultivating and optimizing the flow of vital energy, qi or prana, throughout the body, eliminating energy blockages, strengthening internal organs, purifying energy channels, meridians or nadis, and amplifying overall vitality. Each movement is performed with full awareness of intention and energy flow, with breath as a constant, gentle, and deep guide. This not only improves physical health, flexibility, balance, and coordination, but also deepens mental stillness, sharpens observation, and harmonizes emotions, dissolving tension. The body becomes a living temple of consciousness, a perfectly tuned vehicle for the flow of universal energy, capable of moving with grace and power. In addition to these practices, a simple connection with nature, such as walking barefoot on the earth, earthing to absorb its energy, or practicing outdoors, is considered crucial for recharging the body and mind, absorbing the vital energy of the earth, and purifying the energetic field. Conscious nutrition, choosing foods that energize and heal, and adequate rest, prioritizing restorative sleep and moments of conscious inactivity, are also fundamental pillars. As the body is the temple that houses the master mind and needs to be adequately sustained to function at its maximum potential, a well-nourished and rested body is a resilient body, a body that does not drain the mind with its demands, but rather empowers it. A Shaolin master, in their holistic training and life philosophy, never separates physical from mental or spiritual training. They recognize the total interdependence between them. One nurtures and amplifies the other in an interdependent and synergistic way. A strong, flexible, vital, and energized body is the ideal and most potent receptacle for a clear, lucid, and powerful mind. It is not an obstacle but a facilitator. A clear and focused mind, in turn, guides the body with precision, wisdom and efficiency, optimizing its function, preventing wear and tear, and allowing it to move with a grace that seems supernatural. This is the essence of the mind-body-spirit unity that many philosophies and disciplines ardently seek, but few manage to integrate fully into daily life. It is the key to unwavering vitality, deep resilience in the face of adversity, and a magnetic presence that radiates from the center of your being. This integration creates an internal harmony that is reflected in health, calmness, and optimal performance. The discipline of emptiness, letting go to gain. In a world obsessed with incessant accumulation of material goods, knowledge, experiences, academic degrees, social connections, things that we believe define us and give us value, the Shaolin path introduces a radical and profoundly liberating concept, the discipline of emptiness. This is not a call to ascetic renunciation of everything or to nihilism, but to a deliberate and conscious practice of letting go of what no longer serves, what does not nourish you, what weighs you down, what limits you, or what prevents you from moving forward. It is an act of conscious pruning, an energetic and mental shedding that allows the flourishing of the essential. By emptying the glass of the unnecessary, we create a vast and fertile vital space for what is truly meaningful, for new creation, and for the wisdom that resides within. Emptiness of information, deep digital and mental detox. Instead of constantly and indiscriminately consuming more information passively, alarming news, addictive social media that steal your time, superfluous entertainment that dulls your mind, you practice an active detoxification of information. You deliberately choose not to read every news item that comes your way, not to watch every viral video, not to listen to every popular podcast that does not bring you genuine value. You create intentional voids in your information consumption and in your daily schedule, sacred blocks of time without external stimulation, to allow your mind to rest deeply, process what it has already absorbed, organically integrate wisdom, and most importantly generate original ideas, creative solutions, and intuitive insights from its own internal source, instead of being a mere passive receptacle of external data. This conscious emptiness nourishes genuine creativity, intuition, the ability to think for yourself, and the emergence of inspiration. Information overload, on the contrary, generates what is known as decision fatigue and analysis paralysis. Emptiness restores the power of choice to you. Emptiness of expectations and obsessive control surrender. You release the rigid need for things to be a specific way to control every detail of the final outcome of your actions. You detach from future results with deep trust and a surrender to the intelligence of the universe's flow. This does not mean lack of ambition or passive resignation. It means liberation from paralyzing anxiety, chronic stress and frustration that arise from the futile attempt to control the uncontrollable. When you do not rigidly cling to a predefined outcome, you become infinitely more flexible, adaptable, and capable of seeing new opportunities that were previously hidden by your limited vision or your attachment to a single possibility. It is the liberation from the prison of your own projections and expectations, an act of faith in the wisdom of life's process. You open yourself to a wider range of possibilities that your conscious mind could never have imagined. Emptiness of judgment and criticism. Internal and external compassionate neutrality. You practice letting go of relentless and constant judgment of yourself and others. You recognize that judgment is a corrosive mental noise, a form of resistance that blinds you to essential truth, distorts your perception of reality, and consumes an immense amount of vital energy. Instead, you cultivate genuine curiosity, compassion, radical acceptance, and neutral observation. You see things as they are, without the burden of criticism, allowing yourself to see beyond the surface and connect with the essence of people and situations. This frees you from the burden of perfection and self-exigence and allows you to connect with others from a place of authenticity, empathy, and deep understanding. Judgment separates you. The emptiness of judgment unites you. Emptiness of identification with thought and emotion. The observer, You stop rigidly identifying with every thought or emotion that arises in your consciousness, recognizing them as transient phenomena and not as your immutable identity. You understand that they are like clouds passing across the vast sky of your consciousness, not the immutable essence of who you are. This frees you from the tyranny of your own mind, from self-limiting narratives, and from the emotional roller coaster. You realize that you are the vast, immutable and silent sky that contains the clouds, not the clouds themselves. This practice allows you to operate from a place of deep calm, stability and wisdom, even when there is turbulence in your mental or emotional landscape. It is the essence of detachment that allows true freedom. The discipline of emptiness is not an absence of content, but a form of creation through non-creation. By letting go of the superfluous, what weighs you down, what limits you, or what no longer serves you, you open a vast, sacred and fertile inner space for the new, the essential, the truly meaningful, and the highest part of your being to emerge spontaneously, unhindered by clutter. It is like emptying a glass of stagnant, murky water to fill it with fresh, pure and crystalline water. This emptiness is not a void, a lack, or an absence. It is a potential fullness, the fertile field, the blank canvas from which true innovation, deep wisdom, and manifestation most aligned with your purpose and authentic self emerge. It is the sacred ground for the birth of genius, unleashed creativity, and connection with the universal source. The ethics of power, responsibility and service. Such sharp power, such a clear mind, and such an unwavering presence radiating from calmness carry an immense and profound responsibility. Shaolin mastery, in its purest essence and highest purpose, is not a path to isolated personal achievement, the selfish accumulation of material successes, or the domination of others for one's own ends. It is at its heart a path to selfless service to humanity and the planet. True strength is not that which imposes with aggression or control, but that which uplifts, heals and liberates. The power of active and discriminative compassion. A clear mind, detached from reactivity and superficial judgments, sees the inherent suffering in the world and in others with a clarity that can be painful yet also inspiring and clarifying. But that clarity does not lead to cynicism, despair or apathy, but to a deep, radical and active compassion. Compassion in this context is not a passive emotion of pity, but the inspired action that arises from a deep and empathetic understanding of others' suffering, impelling you to contribute to its alleviation in conscious, effective and wisdom-aligned ways. Your clarity allows you to see the underlying root of suffering, beyond superficial symptoms, and your power allows you to be an agent of change and healing. Silent and inspiring leadership by resonance. You do not need a formal title, a position of authority or a public platform to lead. Your mere presence, rooted in stillness, clarity and the unwavering authenticity of your being, becomes a beacon that guides others. You lead by the living example of your coherence with your silent integrity and with the calmness and wisdom that you radiate naturally and effortlessly. Your serenity in the storm, your discernment in confusion, and your wisdom in making complex decisions magnetically attract those seeking guidance, clarity, and stability. You are a silent leader whose influence is deeply felt in every interaction without the need to impose, convince, or manipulate. People perceive your authenticity and inner strength and feel inspired to uplift themselves. Your mere presence can dissipate tension in a room or bring calm to a conflict. The legacy of coherence and collective upliftment. Each time you consciously and deliberately choose stillness over noise, attentive observation over impulsive reaction, conscious response over automatism, and elevated vibration over density, you do not only transform yourself at an individual level, you are, subtly yet immensely powerfully, sending a wave of coherence, healing and upliftment to the vast collective unconscious of humanity. You actively contribute to raising the overall vibration of the planet. Your personal transformation ceases to be an isolated act of self-improvement and becomes an act of global service, an invaluable gift to the planet and all life. By healing yourself, by purifying and raising your own energetic field, you send waves of healing and clarity into the vast collective unconscious, creating a critical mass of consciousness. Your legacy ultimately will not be what you materially accumulate or the successes you achieve externally, but the quality of your presence, the light you radiate, and the vibration of coherence and wisdom you share with the world, inspiring others perhaps without your knowledge or seeking recognition, to awaken their own inner mastery and raise their own consciousness. The path of mastery is, by its very nature, continuous and uninterrupted. There is no static endpoint where you stop, where there is nothing more to learn or integrate. It is a journey of constant evolution, of infinite deepening into your own being, of perpetual refinement of your consciousness, and of your unwavering connection to the whole. It is the commitment to live each day, each hour, each moment, from a place of stillness, clarity, purpose, and profound love. It is the realization that true strength is not that which imposes with aggression or control, but that which uplifts, heals, liberates, and illuminates from the calmness of your own being. And by embracing this path, with an open heart and an awakened mind, you become an unshakable force for good, not only for yourself, but for the entire world. A true warrior of consciousness in the heart of modernity, whose light expands silently,